This is Unspoiled Special Edition, in which we cover Stranger Things, Season 1, Episode 6, Chapter 6, The Monster. In this episode, break on through to the other side. I got nothing. Welcome to Unspoiled Special Edition. Yeah,
that was a good one.
I was gonna sing it, but it's early. I don't have the energy. I haven't even had a drink yet today.
You're not singing The Doors.
A chai doesn't really inspire The Doors.
No.
So yeah. So what'd you think of this episode?
I liked this episode, and again, like you told me, I didn't want to stop. I was mad. I was like, boo. But it was really good, and I just loved the three of them together with Dustin and Mike and 11. They're the most adorable. I love them so much.
I have a real issue with Lucas.
Oh, well, come on.
I can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't. Like, Owen's like, well, I like Lucas. And I'm just like, he just bothers me so much. He gets so angry. And like the jealousy thing, I'm just like, man, there comes a point where you're just being a dick, though, despite that, you know?
And I like Dustin being like, but he's your best friend.
Aww.
And Mike being like, you're my best friend, too. He's like, no, it's not the same. He's like, well, I say it's the same.
Yeah.
And Dustin was like, hee, okay.
Oh, my God. It was so cute.
Oh, it was so cute. I actually, took a screenshot of some face that Dustin was making that was just the most adorable. I love him. It's so cute. Yeah.
And this episode, like many of the others, kind of picks up right where this one left off.
Yeah.
Where Nancy is in the Upside Down.
Yeah.
And she is hiding. And Jonathan can hear her screaming. But he cannot figure out where the fuck she is. And then he sees the weird light coming out of, like, it's like almost like there's embers glowing.
Yeah.
And she can see on her end the light shining out from this tree. And it's just, like, there's this real, like, visceral, like, ugh, because she's got her, she's leaning against a tree when she sees the light. And then there's all of this, like, gooey stuff clinging to the tree trunk that's getting in her hair and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then when she puts her hand through, he falls over. Did you jump?
Yes, I actually did.
Oh my God, I totally did. I jump every time. I've seen this episode like 3 times now. I still jump.
Yes, that was a good one.
And when she comes through, she looks like she just came through a birth canal.
Yes, she does. That's exactly what she looks like.
It's super gross.
And to his credit, he hugs her and then watches the tree, like, close up on itself.
Yes.
That was neat.
Because there cannot be any evidence of this for anyone.
No.
Because we cannot have anyone believing you. There's a black Hitler is making paninis in the corner. That's a community reference, guys. I just realized that could sound super weird if you don't know what I'm talking about. But we don't want you talking to anyone about this, and if you do, we don't want them believing you.
Is what happens after that?
That's the end of the cold open, yeah. Right. And then we go to Steve with his douchebag friends.
They're the worst.
Yeah, they're terrible. And he's actually concerned about Nancy.
Yeah.
And he goes to the house and just climbs up onto the roof to her room. And he sees Jonathan sitting next to her on the bed with a, putting a sweater over her shoulders or something and, like, holding her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think his friend, like, as much as she's awful, really nailed it. He is concerned because there is no way a girl could have blown him off.
Right,
that just doesn't happen.
Especially for Jonathan Byers.
Right? Oh my God.
I like the line about, 2 days ago, I wouldn't have imagined that I would be searching for monsters with Jonathan Byers, and he says, "Okay, well, what's the weirder part, the monster or me?" And she goes, "Definitely you." It's very cute.
So yeah, he sees that, and later on that explodes into a whole thing,
Ugh,
and it's really, really gross.
it's super gross.
Um,
We
but
can talk about that when we get
yeah,
there.
we will get there later. Um, so then we go to Joyce's house, and she's sitting talking to Hopper, and
Hmm.
he is describing what he saw when he was in the labs.
Hmm.
And finally, he mentions a
A
drawing, which he
drawing.
hadn't said before. And she asks if it's good, which to him seems like a ridiculous question. But it turns out to be very important because she has a drawing she shows him that Will did that's actually very good. And it proves to her that it's not him. And
Right.
he seems to pretty much agree immediately and decides that this has to be this girl
Right.
that
And
they
I
can
loved
tell
him
of.
saying the thing that I said earlier where he's like, I thought I was looking for Will, but this whole time I've been I've been looking for another kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yep, that's exactly what you've been doing. Good job, Hopper.
Yep.
But he's so smart.
He is. I love him the most.
And he doesn't, he's really he really leaves his ego out of this so much.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't get down on himself for being wrong about things or for, he doesn't get stuck in like, well, I said this, so it must be this. Like he's really able to let that part of his brain go and change as the evidence changes.
Right.
And I like that. I think that's pretty rare in humans, but also in cops in particular,
That's true.
So especially like I'm comparing it to when we're watching Agent Carter and how long it takes them to move off this idea that they must be looking for evidence about Howard Stark
Yeah.
and not actually looking for evidence about what any other potential possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
What else could be happening here? They're so fixated on this one end goal that they're not looking at the bigger picture. And Hopper is the exact opposite, and I love it about him.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that he's being really smart in that he is basically going, okay, I am so far out of my depth here that I am going to take every single piece of information into account because there is so much potential for me to be so incredibly wrong
Mm-hmm.
that I really need to like kind of have some insurance on that.
Right. He's sort of like everything is so weird already that you can't count anything out
Mm-hmm.
just for it seeming weird. You have to be like, all right, well, maybe. Let's throw that in the mix.
It makes me think of when I was like, just doing, I would try and make my own book covers and stuff for when I was publishing stuff on Amazon. And I would save every single like stage of it separately because I
Right.
was so sure that I was going to completely fuck it up. And I did.
Hmm.
That I would need something to go back to. I feel like he's sort of doing that where he's like, all right, we're saving this, putting that into this folder, and
Right.
now we can proceed,
Move
but
on.
that's there.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that with the two of them, I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And we go from there back to Nancy's house, and she is showering and having like, real agita because a monster just tried to eat her.
Oh my God.
And Jonathan is sleeping on the floor, and she's just like,
In the little sleeping bag. That's so cute. He's like, I hope this is okay. I found it in your closet. And it's like the girliest,
oh my
littlest
God.
sleeping bag.
And it's like 3 minutes, and she's like, can you just come up here?
Right.
Um,
And he brings the gun with him into the bed.
does he? I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. So he has the gun tucked, like he's holding it in his hand. And he has it like tucked under the covers,
Okay.
lying there. Yeah.
And he says it can't get us in here, and she's just like, we don't know that.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I appreciate that response, because you don't. If they had been talking to Joyce at all, they would know that
Yeah, that is
Walter,
not
no
true.
problem.
Ew, not a problem at all for this thing. Oh, I felt so bad for Nancy. I mean, I really empathized with her. That shower scene is so brutal.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who has gone through an experience where you then go stand in a shower and try and wash it off of you and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I was it wasn't a monster, so it wasn't something supernatural, but I was still able to be like,
Still a monster.
I feel you, Nancy. I really, I get where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the not being able to sleep, that
Mm-hmm.
also was very familiar. Oh, Nancy.
The way they're handling Nancy's story is so great.
Yeah.
Like, I just, the first episode, you really think that you know where this is going with her, and you're already bored. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You're just like, oh, okay, fine. I guess we have to do this, but whatever. And they wind up just going somewhere much more real than you expected, and just overall making her just so much more of a full person.
Right.
And I just was super happy with it because I know that a lot of people, had an issue when they started with feeling like this storyline bogged everything down. And I'm like, just be patient though.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, he climbs up into bed with her and they just like weirdly half snuggle, like not even
Right.
really. um, and then the next day we have Hopper and Joyce going to visit this woman.
Yeah. And so the woman looked really familiar. I looked her up. The actress her name is Amy Mullins,
Okay.
not the sister, the
The
mom,
mother. Okay, yeah.
Mhm. Who is a Paralympic athlete, who she doesn't run anymore, but she's a double amputee, like
Oh,
at the
okay.
knee,
Hmm.
and she has these like metal running legs,
The ones that
and
like curve and are
yeah,
bouncy. Yeah,
yeah.
neat.
So she's a champion Paralympic athlete. For a while in the early 2000s, she was pretty well known.
Hmm.
If you followed anything about that, because she started doing fashion modeling,
Hmm.
which was sort of this cool, like, oh, we've got a disabled fashion model thing. And now it seems like she's moved into acting, which is cool. She was also in Matthew Barney, who's this weirdo conceptual artist who was married to Bjork for a really long time.
Oh, okay.
He did this. I can't even describe the art he does. He's like obsessed with Vaseline. It's really gross and weird.
Oh.
I know, he's weird. So he made this like 9-part movie or something, and she was in one of them as and it was filmed in the Guggenheim. So she's like in this crazy spiral museum room, and he's this creepy monster guy. I don't know. I can't explain the Cremaster cycle. I don't understand art well enough to be able to explain what any of that was. But I watched it and I was like, "This is weird. She's pretty." So seeing her in this, I was like, "Who is that?" And looked it up. I'm like, "Oh, I remember her. She hasn't been around for a while." So I'm glad she's doing something, even though she's kind of just staring off into
Yeah, she
space.
doesn't have any lines, but she's
No,
still an affecting presence,
good job.
nevertheless.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so they are talking to the sister, and there's this whole thing where this woman volunteered for these experiments,
Mm-hmm.
and they basically melted her brain.
Mm-hmm.
She was pregnant, and as far as she knows, she miscarried in the third trimester, but she never really believed that.
Right.
And
She was convinced they stole her baby.
and she has like a whole nursery set up where
Yep.
she's waiting for this baby to come back, which is
Right.
like so sad. Oh my god. And the sister is describing that, supposedly this baby had telekinetic abilities. This was something that I kind of agree with Owen in that the weird cuts that they make to
Mm-hmm.
showing Eleven doing a bunch of things that she's describing feel very unnecessary.
I was going to say they're unnecessary. We get what she's talking about.
Right? Like,
We
we
know who
know.
they're referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't need to have like smash cuts to her, like, throwing people into walls and breaking their necks and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
we already knew going into this who they were talking about. You're confirming it verbally. We don't really need the visuals.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of people to choose from in this that we think it could be.
Right.
So,
I think the whole point is to sort of make it so that the audience accepts it for sure that we're supposed to know that this is definitely what's happening.
right.
As opposed to being like, well, maybe. They're like, no. Really. This is it. This is the kid. And I'm like, okay, we'll just go with it.
Yeah, I guess
But
that's true. Instead of thinking that there are multiple kids out there, maybe.
right, especially since she's named 11, it makes me think, there must have
That's
been 10 other
true.
kids. And, there were other people in these experiments. Like, was he impregnating them, doing this
Oh,
on purpose? Was he getting, like, an army of kids? Was
ew.
she the only one that it worked out with? Like, is that why she's the only one apparently still there?
Oh my
If,
God, that
if
didn't even occur
so,
to me. If he's
if so,
impregnating them.
what happened to the other 10 children?
Uh,
Because she
yikes.
wasn't the only one being experimented on. Like, they talked about
No,
this. They
yeah.
recruited from, like, her college campus. They, like, found druggies who were like, yeah, I'll get paid to take LSD and do
Mm-hmm.
whatever weird shit you want to do to me. Put me in isolation tanks until my brain explodes.
Mm-hmm.
And then that happened, and they were like, oh, maybe that was a bad idea. So, yeah. And just the whole, like, Matthew Modine being referred to by Eleven as Papa
Yeah.
makes me, like, in my brain, I don't think he was sleeping with her, but I think the possibility that he impregnated her as part of this experiment seems very, very likely, and potentially with his own sperm. So, yay!
Yeah, that's the thing. Like,
They,
because I'm like, I just assumed that she called him Papa because that was the role he
he's
decided to give himself.
right,
But if
but
they actually are, so terrible.
yeah,
And I like this development that Eleven doesn't have powers because they gave, like, experimented and gave her powers. She has powers because they experimented on her mom
yeah,
while she was pregnant, which
yeah.
is an interesting development that I just enjoy, that, like, one step removed sort of idea, you
I
know?
think I think that's sort of what they refer to as epigenetics, which is like the life experiences that your parents have can
Okay.
affect their DNA in a way that their kids then inherit it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure that's what that is. I've never quite understood the concept of epigenetics, but I think this is that sort of taken to an extreme.
So that whole idea of, like, when rats are shocked when they smell cherry blossoms, that future generations of rats
We'll
avoid cherry
remember that.
blossoms.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I found that whole idea to be incredibly fascinating, especially given the group experiences of that's something that I talked about in the Dark Tower podcast, because there's a character who has a split personality who really reminded me of what in that The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, who I'm not a big fan of, but he had an interesting concept that he described as a pain body, and he said that it's a emotional reaction to an experience that you do not personally have to experience,
Mm-hmm.
and yet you still have this, like, gut reaction to it because it has to do with who you are. Like, so women collectively have a pain body surrounding sexual assault and oppression and, very specific type of, and then, black people are going to have a pain body surrounding oppression and abuse and, like, and I found that to be a really interesting concept. In the Dark Tower, there's a character that it feels like is a pain body come to life.
Huh.
Um, and it winds up, because it's real dangerous. But I just always found that whole idea of the genetically transferred experiences to feel true.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it is, but it feels, because I personally am lucky enough to have never been assaulted. But I see a movie or something that has a scene in it, and I will feel like I'm going to vomit. Like,
Yeah.
I have a strong enough reaction that sometimes I'm like, did something happen to me that I, like, pushed away and forgot
Blocked
about?
out. Right.
Yeah, But I don't think it has. I just think that there are certain things that get to you when you know that they're more of a risk for you, and that it's
Yeah.
just. Um, so, yeah, so 11 has these powers that they were kind of trying to give the mom.
Hmm.
Um, and the mom is convinced that she's still out there somewhere, and God help me, but that's just so sad.
And the fact that she's sitting in the nursery, like, this is still, even if she gets the kid back, it's not a baby
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And she's just, like, in a rocking chair. It's
Yep.
like, oh, you're not gonna get to, like, rock this child to sleep.
Yeah,
It's
she's
just,
definitely stuck in the year in which this happened.
yeah, she's gone. She's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
And
Sucks to be Amy Mullins, but she's toast.
it's interesting too, because you're saying she's not a baby anymore, and I kind of wonder if 11 wouldn't like that room,
Yeah,
because
she might.
she hasn't got a lot of she hasn't had a lot of stimulus, so even a little mobile of fluffy animals might be kind of like,
Maybe a little much for
well,
her.
not stimulus, that's the wrong word. She's clearly had lots of stimulus,
Yeah.
but,
Oh, too much.
yeah.
That's the thing. Too much stimulus. Maybe something nice and relaxing and pink.
Um, so yeah, this is a very revealing visit.
Hmm.
And the sister is just kind of like, well, you would have gotten along with her real well because they
Right,
keep
because
being like,
Hopper
they could have
keeps
covered this
talking
up.
about, yeah, that was really funny when he keeps being like, well, maybe she was true about the conspiracy theories, and she's like, you're neat. You guys would have been good together. You're just as paranoid and weird as she is. Only not yet catatonic, so go Hopper.
Good for you.
Hopefully
Um,
we can keep that run going.
and then we go back to Nancy and Jonathan, and they've woken up. She's been awake,
Yeah.
and they are looking at this. She's looking through some books about predators
Hmm.
and figuring out the blood thing,
Hmm.
which go her.
Yeah.
And they decide that they are going to figure out a way to trap this thing by luring it with blood.
Right.
Um, which sounds like a terrible plan, but all right. Um, and the mom, Nancy's mom, like, tries to just open the door. Nancy
Hmm.
very wisely has the door locked.
Mm.
Um, and I for some reason that detail really like made me LOL a little bit because that is the kind of thing that a parent wouldn't like. A parent like Karen
Hmm.
would think was not a big deal. She's my child. I should be able to open the
Walk
door.
right in, yeah.
And it's like, no, you are so oblivious to how important privacy is, and that you at least fucking knock. At
Right.
least, come on.
Right. And Jonathan comments on that, right? He's like, your
Yes.
mom doesn't knock.
Yep. So yeah, I like all of these little details about like who Karen is and why that has made Nancy who she is.
Yeah.
Um, Not to say that it's totally predicated on your parents, but there's definitely going to be habits that then instill a sort of like paranoid vibe.
Right.
Um, and she says, I've made pancakes and it takes a while. Nancy hasn't come downstairs. And Karen goes up to check on her, uses a hairpin to force the door open.
Yeah.
And there is still like the blankets on the floor and they are gone.
Right.
And it just seemed real unnecessary to me. Like, I understand that you just kind of want to get out of there, but can't, like, I don't think they drive their kids to school. Go downstairs, act like everything's normal, have your damn pancakes, and
And
then
then take
bail.
off. Yeah. Let Jonathan out the window and you
Yeah,
come down and pretend everything's fine for like 10 minutes. Then be like, I got a motor. Head
yeah.
on out.
Um, but whatever. She handles this in a much more dramatic fashion.
Because she's a teenager.
Exactly.
She's a teenager who's just jumped by a monster. So,
Hmm.
she's like, all right, I feel like even their plan to catch the monster, it's such a like over dramatic teenager sort of response to everything,
Hmm.
like they're just going to take this to the next level and they're old enough that they can handle it on their own. But at the same time, there's a little bit of, when you're a teenager, you kind of think that this part of you thinks that you're living in your own movie, like you're the star of your own movie.
I
You
still
know
feel
that?
that way. Hmm.
But it's stronger when you're a teenager. Like it's
That's
still
true.
very much there. Like you're the main character in the movie that is your life.
Hmm.
And so everything just has a touch of extra drama in it. And I think they capture that pretty nicely with Nancy. She seems like the sort of girl who would definitely have that in her head.
Yeah, agreed. Um, so then we go to a really worrying scene with the science teacher.
Oh, I was so scared.
I know,
It's
right?
like, don't let that lady in. She shoots people.
Yeah, she
Ooh.
comes in and pretends to be with this like AV club type thing.
Right.
And they write, this is a newsletter, and they write how-to articles themselves and blah blah blah. Do you know any kids that might be interested? And bless him, he has no suspicions at all that this is something else, and it's just like, oh yeah, I know a few. Um, so yeah, were you thinking that he was a goner in this scene?
I thought there was definitely a possibility. As the scene went on, I was like, okay, I think he's safe because there's no need for her to leave a trail because he believes her so completely.
Right.
That like just shooting him would be unnecessary.
Mhm.
But when she first walked in, I was like, "Don't, no, she killed Benny." Ooh.
This is something that as like I'm not a teacher. I don't have friends that are like, I have a couple friends that work at colleges, but not in elementary or middle school. And the fact that she like comes to his house to tell him about this program to me seems super weird.
Super suspicious, yeah.
But I don't know if that was more of a thing. They live in a small town, like,
Right.
and I know that a lot of teachers like use their own money to pay for certain things, like.
Although that happened less at the time. Like back in the 80s, school districts actually still paid for crayons and shit. You didn't have to like the teachers didn't have to do it, the parents didn't do it. They were just at the schools. Not anymore. Now you get a list at the beginning of the school year that's like, we need 3 boxes of Kleenex and
Right.
we need 4 packages of bleach wipes. And I'm like, why am I buying these? Don't
Yeah,
I
that
pay
is some
taxes?
bullshit, man.
It's so weird. When the first time my daughter went to school and I got one of those lists, I was like, wait, I buy the Kleenex for the classroom?
Mm-hmm.
What? But yeah,
Yeah,
that's how it is now.
that's crazy.
But it wasn't like that. So, but at the same time, I think it was much more, the sort of door to door thing was much more common
Mm-hmm.
than it is now. Like now, when somebody knocks on your door, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I always answer because I'm a sucker, but it happens so
You
rarely.
do?
I do.
Girl.
I know. I'm too nice.
Girl.
But I know. But having done like political campaigning door to door, I'm always like, well, maybe it's somebody talking about a candidate and I should, this is they're doing it for the summer as like an internship or whatever, and I'll be nice to them. But at the time, you would get like encyclopedia salesman door to door. You'd get vacuum cleaner salesman door to door. Like that was a thing. And you're like, all right, somebody's at the door. Let's go see what they're trying to sell me. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's no internet. How else are you supposed to get your Encyclopedia Britannica like 1 month at a time, budgeted over the course of 2 years? Remember when you used to have encyclopedias that were actual physical
Oh,
encyclopedias?
totally.
Oh,
We
that's
had a
odd.
bunch of them. My dad was, for some reason, very obsessed with the idea of encyclopedias. I think it's because in like Colombia, they didn't really have libraries as accessibly, and
Sure.
the idea of like buying those to have for yourself at home was just so like crazy an idea that he went nuts because we had an entire set, which I later learned was kind of a rare thing.
Yeah, it
Um,
was. Like my grandmother had one. Like my grandmother lived downstairs from us, and she had a whole big set, but they were really old, so half the information was out of date. But yeah, they were like old and fancy, and must have been super expensive.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to ours, but yeah, we had an entire set that filled up this like huge shelf, and I always just found them very impressive looking and would just kind of pick them up and like flip through them without really even
Right?
looking for anything. And I wish I still had them because I bet they do look super awesome to just have on a shelf.
Yeah.
Cover them with other book titles on the spine. Be like, oh yes, this is a first edition of Be like, this is B through R. No. This volume is 17,000 pages long. How is that? Anyway, so yeah.
I think people were just less suspicious of, randos at their door at the time than
That's
they would be
fair.
now.
So back with the boys. Dustin is yelling at Mike, saying that, this wasn't Lucas's fault, and he's like, "What the fuck? You were saying that he wasn't out of line?" And he's like, "Oh, he was totally out of line, but so were you, and so was 11. You were all being a bunch of little assholes."
Oh, he's so great.
Dustin, you're the best. I firmly believe, even though I have nothing to back this up, that Dustin wasn't meant to be as big a character, and they just wound up being like, let's give him more and more of the lines.
Right. Because he's so good.
There are points that I feel like it would have made sense if this were Michael,
Hmm.
like talking at certain points, and that it winds up being Dustin, and I'm just like, yeah, all right, I agree with your choice here, but I see that this might not have started out this way, which
Yeah.
I think you'll see what I'm saying later on.
Okay.
Um,
Um, but Mike's mostly fixated on the fact that 11 didn't come back. Like
mhm,
he's worried.
yeah, and
Um,
he
but
drew first blood,
yes, that's right. So he has to go apologize.
and he does not want to do that. And Dustin's just basically says, "This is not a discussion. You either do it or you're banished." To which I'm like, "Well, shit."
I love them living their lives by Dungeons and Dragons
Yes.
rules. It's my favorite. I love it.
It provides a ton of order, and I
Hmm.
fully approve of this.
Uh,
Um, so yeah, they go to Lucas's house, who gives Mike this look, doesn't want to shake right away, is pacing back and forth in the house, just like, um, being really, well, over the top about,
yeah.
should I? And finally, he says, I will shake on it if you agree to leave 11 out of this from now on. To which Michael is like, fuck you.
Right.
No.
Which is the correct response.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not gonna even if he didn't have whatever emotional connection he has to her, you can't just totally abandon this girl. And he's
Yeah.
like, well, she'll be fine because she can do this, that, and the other thing. And Mike's like, she's in trouble. Like, how can you just totally abandon somebody
Mm-hmm.
who's in trouble? Like, I think he's really upset that Lucas would have that sort of reaction. Like, it just seems so foreign to him.
And this is really the thing that made me go, fuck you, Lucas. Like, it just, I understand the jealousy thing, but 11, clearly she came from a really bad place, as she calls it. The fact that he's like, she's a traitor, she's a liar. I'm like, dude, she's dealt with shit you have no fathoming. Like, you can't even imagine. And for you to make a judgment call about what she's gone through is just so far, it's just so ridiculous. Just stop it.
Yeah.
Um, and I understand that he's a kid, but I feel like even as a child, I think I would have understood that
Hmm.
this is a person who has abilities that people should not have.
Right.
And to think that I have better judgment about something than they do when they're closer to that thing, maybe listen to what she's saying,
Right.
you know? So this scene for me, I was just basically wrote Lucas off completely. I was just like, you know what, dude? Fine, go off by yourself, whatever. I was
But then he
very
goes and he
annoyed.
gets all Ramboed up, so
Mm-hmm.
he's got his own plan, which
Good luck with
amounts to
that.
very little. Yeah,
Splitting up the party.
that always works well.
Then we got picked off by trolls one by one, and we were all disabled, and it all went to shit. So yeah, that just does not go very well. And to me, it's, and he's saying like she's a traitor too, to which I'm like, yeah, she didn't want you to find the portal, but
Yeah,
she did try and tell you where Will was, and you said she was lying about that too, and she
yeah,
clearly wasn't, as you found out later. You just didn't get it.
right.
So learn from your mistake and understand that maybe when she says things that you don't understand, or she does things that you don't think are right, that maybe she just knows more about this than you. Just give her the benefit of the doubt a little bit, but he's just not willing to do that.
Yeah, Lucas is basically the anti-Hopper.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Okay, that explains why I just dislike him so much then.
Because you love Hopper so
I
much.
love Harper. Oh my god, have you watched that skit that with um oh my god, the one from Ghostbusters, whose name I can't remember now.
Kate McKinnon?
Yes, where she's the Spanish lady who did the painting.
No, but you've mentioned it to me and I just haven't gotten around to
I
watching it.
posted it in the group.
I know. I
Girl.
know. I was with my kids and I didn't have a chance to, and then I forgot about it. But yes.
There's a part she's like, "You are the most handsome man I've seen so long." That's how I want to talk about Hopper. Oh, Hopper, you're the most handsome man I've seen so long. Anyway, so with 11, she is off by herself and puts this wig on, looking at her reflection in the pond. And she's by the, as we find out later significantly, in the quarry by the water. And she yanks the wig off after a second and just screams at her reflection
Yeah.
and sends this like
Crazy ripple.
shockwave. Yeah. And we have a flashback and
Mhm.
we see what happened.
Yeah.
Was this kind of what you had suspected? Like, what did you think?
No, it made perfect sense all of a sudden, but it
Mm-hmm.
definitely was not what I had expected. I didn't think that it because it suddenly all clicked.
Mm-hmm.
That I was like, oh, that's why they're sending people into the rift and really don't understand what's going on
Mm-hmm.
because this is very new.
Yep.
And I like the visual of it, of like the rift opening in the wall,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody running around like a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off, and
And it really it just displays this incredible arrogance because
uh-huh.
the flashback starts off with this guy being like, "We're going to make contact today,"
Yeah.
and he's talking to her later and says, you know, don't worry, it can't hurt you from here. To
Hmm.
which I'm like, why do
Based
you think
on
that?
what?
Yeah, like what evidence do you have that this is true?
Right.
Um, and not shockingly, as soon as she touches this thing, it basically tears a hole.
Right.
So making contact is what
It did.
shatters the divides between worlds, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and the creation of the rift is so dramatic and awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. I really liked the scene. I thought it was great.
Um,
And I did appreciate, I was like, okay, we have information.
mm-hmm,
We have filled in a lot of gaps in this episode. I
mm-hmm,
like that. I appreciate that, given that we're getting close to the end.
yeah,
You never know, like I talked about with Lost, like how much they're going to leave hanging. I'm like, I
mm-hmm,
like that they didn't leave a lot of this hanging. Like,
yeah,
this makes sense. They found an internal logic for why these things are happening
yeah,
to an extent.
right.
I mean, it's still an alternate dimension with a crazy flower face monster who busts through walls.
Flower
But
face.
yeah, he is. He's like a
Weird Dick
flower
Tracy
face with
villain.
teeth. Yeah. Prune Face's cousin. A flower face. So yeah, I really did appreciate them really positioning it all sort of. We've filled in so many of the gaps now
Right.
that I like that. They did a good job. Yay. I get it. I think.
Um,
I think I get what happened and what's going on as much as you can with something totally supernatural that doesn't really
um,
follow our rules, you know. So
they then we go from that flashback to her going into a supermarket.
oh man, that scene.
I loved this the most.
Oh, it's so funny.
She's walking in with her bloody nose covered in dirt. Everybody's looking at her like, the fuck?
Right.
And she walks straight past everybody. And I love it's not that she's unaware that people are looking at her. She obviously just straight up doesn't give any fucks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And she opens the freezer and pulls out like 4 boxes of
Of
Eggos
Egos.
and stalks past this guy who's like, "We'll call the police." And he's following her, and she uses her mind to put a grocery cart in his way, to close the doors in his face so hard that the glass like shatters.
She calls him a mouth breather too, doesn't
Yes!
she? When he's like, can I help you? And she's like, mouth breather.
I loved that the most. I just like cackled the first time I saw that episode when she did that. I like immediately was on my phone typing, "She said mouth breather!" I love that so much. And then we see Lucas, and you know, he's all Rambo'd up and he's leaving his house and he sees this company car,
Mm-hmm.
this van, and he is just like got this vibe. You can tell he knows something's wrong here. But the dude just waves at him and is super cash, and he just waves back. It's like, all right, but his suspicions, like he has good instincts.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll give him that. He does
Yeah.
have a couple good instincts.
And Mike and Dustin are riding their bikes, and they're talking about the friendship thing.
Right.
And then they come across the scene at the grocery store, and they're like, "Oh yeah, 11 was just here."
Right, right. We know who did this.
Yeah. And while in the woods, Lucas is following his compass and finally reaches the same fence that Hopper had cut through.
Right.
And he's following it along, like, he's trying to find a way into this place, which is just crazy banana pants. Like, I was just so not this kid. I reach a fence and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I better turn around.
There's a wire fence. That means the end.
Yeah, exactly. I had a great deal of respect for authority as a kid, which I grew out of at some point.
Right.
But
I was not a Rambo tree climbing, fence jumping kind of kid.
Yeah,
No.
definitely not.
I had a friend who was, and like I would try and sort of follow along with her and be like, "Hey, what do we do? Where are we going? What's up?" And I was always such a sad little puppy dog. I could not do what she was so awesome. She was the best, but I was like, I can't be as cool as you. I can't do it. She's like, no, just climb up this tree. We'll only go 70 feet in the air. And I was like, okay. That sounds like a good plan. And I was like, how do I get back down? And she's like, I don't know, you just scurry down like a squirrel, like I'm doing. And I'm like, I weigh 9 zillion pounds. I'm so much larger than you. I can't do any of the things you're doing. And she's like, I guess I'll call my mom or something. And I'm like, but now I'm in a tree.
So we cut from there back to Nancy and Jonathan, who are at this rifle shop.
Oh, like the surplus store. I loved it. And they just like dump a bear trap
Yep.
on the counter.
What are you guys doing? And she just is like, oh, why not say the truth? Nobody's gonna care.
Right.
So yeah, she just says monster hunting, and the guy just sort of snorts and continues on without comment.
He sort of smiles. He's like, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good an answer as any. Stupid question gets a stupid answer, I guess. None of my business. She's so cute in this scene. I really liked her here,
Agreed.
Which makes what happens right afterwards so much sadder.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, she's being stupid. They're being stupid, but at the same time, she's kind of being a badass, and I like her. And then she just gets her, gets it rubbed in her face. It sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, they're in the middle of putting everything into the trunk. And Steve comes up and is like, oh, can't wait to see your movie. And
no, isn't it somebody who's like driving by who shouts it?
Is it? I thought it was him and that he like walked away again.
Was it?
I'm rewinding. Hold on, because I'm looking at the thing.
I thought it was somebody like calling out of a car window, and she was like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Hold on, it's coming. Yeah, this is when he asks what's weirder, the monster or me, and she's like, you, definitely you. Okay, yeah, car passing. Oh yeah, can't wait to see him. Yeah, it's just some rando, you're right.
Yeah, and then she goes to the movie theater.
And it just says Nancy Wheeler the slut.
Yeah.
And she finds Steven and his horrifying cronies chilling out behind the theater, laughing with a can of spray paint.
I like that the girl from the dark room is still there. That like she's clearly made a play in all this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, guess who? I get to be the new popular girl because I came to them with this information. So now look at me. I'm part of the group. And I'm
Politics, man.
High school, boo.
Yep.
Oh, those douchebag friends, I hate them so much. That guy with all his freckles on his face, I just want to punch him in the face. I hate him.
Yep.
So bad. And the girl, like, they're just the worst. Like, they're
awful.
The worst humans. Like, Steve is hurt.
Mm-hmm.
These dickheads have no reason to give a shit. They're just mean.
Yep.
Steve has like at least some emotional investment in what's happened here, and his ego is bruised too. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, like, what the fuck does it matter to these guys? Like, why are they just there being assholes? Oh, I hate them. I want them to get
Yeah,
eaten by the monster. How come Barb gets eaten by a monster and they can't eat the freckle face asshole? Hate him.
agreed.
Throw him in a pool and like see what happens.
um,
Maybe the monster will come. Dip him in blood. Leave him by the bear trap.
I like that because what you're saying, like, that Steve is hurt. His acting here, like, he's really good at that.
He
He's
is.
angry, but he looks like he's going to cry.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know what he's talking about for a second. And then when she's like, "You came by last night," ding, ding, ding. Does she get a
Oh.
prize?
I'm throwing things across the room right now. Like,
Right.
I'm so mad at that bitch.
You don't want to be known as the lying slut, do you?
Fuck,
Oh,
fuck, 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 fuck. I hate people like that. I just can't.
yeah, she's the
Why is
worst.
it any of your business?
It's a power play.
Oh, I
It's
hate it.
just to
I
feel
know.
like you've got power over someone.
Yep, yep.
She's just a fucking sadist.
Ugh.
Like that's it.
Ugh.
Yeah, she's like her and her boyfriend are like a couple of hyenas.
They really are.
You know,
They're like the hyenas in Lion King.
they're like the hyenas in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is one of the worst yet one of
Oh,
my
really?
favorite episodes.
It's
Like
pretty bad.
I
They're
don't
like
know why I
sniffing at
love it, but I
people.
just do. Um,
Oh, the hyena people episode. That was like the fourth or like the sixth episode. Like, it was really
right in the
early on.
beginning.
Those first few episodes, my God, the praying mantis teacher one, and
Uh,
they're all so bad. I was
uh,
talking to Owen about the one with like the internet monster.
yes.
That's the worst one they ever did. I just straight up, it's so bad.
We can't
Like,
let's not talk about it any further because I'm not sure if Chris Tex Holcomb listens to this show, but he's going to be
oh right,
covering
they're
it.
gonna cover it. Okay, fine,
Um,
I'll hush up. But
so
just so you
yeah,
know, Chris, a bunch of the first season episodes of Buffy are horrible.
yep,
There we go.
real bad,
That's it.
and yet so much fun. Like I
They're
said, it's one of the
so
worst ones, yet one
funny.
of my favorites.
Oh, it's so funny. Okay, anyway, pack
Um,
animals being dickheads in an alley, basically.
yeah. Um, and
And she hits Steve.
she hits Steve, is yelling at him. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Then she realizes, and she's like, "It's not like that." And he's just like, "Whatever." And Jonathan just is like, "Let's just get out of here, Nancy." And of course, Steve can't stand for that. He can't
That
stand for
makes
this
it
guy to
even
just
worse.
leave.
Yeah,
So he picks a fight and loses.
yeah, he does.
He really, really loses.
Yeah, I don't picture Steve as a guy who's really gotten into many fights because
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of like a spoiled, preppy asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling Jonathan and his dad might have gotten into it a few times.
Yeah.
Just a guess.
I could see Jonathan and a bunch of other, like, because he was
Yeah,
obviously the weird kid,
right.
But people mostly leave him alone. And you
Mhm.
manage to be the weird kid that people leave alone by either you basically have to be scary in one way or another.
Mhm.
And there was the kid at my school who was scary in that he seemed like somebody who could go off and shoot up the whole school.
Yeah.
Or there was a kid who was, like basically made it known that he was not to be fucked with by getting in a fight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this was super satisfying to me because I
Yeah.
like men punching. And Jonathan kicking Steve's ass it was great.
Yeah.
And it does not go well for him, though.
No.
The cops swoop in, and he's so fixated on punching the shit out of Steve that he shoves a cop.
Yeah.
And, like, hard. Like, that guy goes back. Which
Yeah.
isn't saying much because he's a weenie. But,
Yeah, he's a weenie.
but yeah, he is arrested, and they have to call Hopper. Like, do you know where Joyce is? Because we had to bring her son in because there was a fight.
Yeah.
Um,
Hopper's like, oh, she's just, she's here with me. We're chilling out.
Nothing,
It's good.
nothing weird. Nothing weird about
No,
it.
it's totally fine. Just talking.
Yep.
Not
Um,
chasing monsters or, telekinetic 11-year-olds or anything. Just, chilling.
and
Having
the
some chips and salsa.
and the woman at the station calls Jonathan her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And Nancy's like, "Oh, he's not." And she's like, "Oh, you better tell him that then.
Right.
Because only
Because,
one thing makes you this stupid."
yeah.
True enough.
Oh, and the look on Nancy's face there.
Yep. And she goes and brings ice for him to ice his face as they're waiting for his mom to come in. And it wouldn't have gone quite as badly for them if it hadn't been for the fact that there was a bunch of weaponry in the trunk.
Right.
So,
That doesn't go over well, generally.
Yeah.
Man.
Um,
So their plan is stymied
yes.
at the moment.
So,
But she's just being so sweet to him.
yes. She's obviously like just this moment of just like, oh shit. Like, now what?
Right.
Um, in the woods, Lucas has climbed up and is peering through his binoculars at the station, figuring out what the hell is going on. He sees
The trucks.
yeah, and he's just like realizing what the hell is going on. But his friends are a little distracted because the crazy bullies jump them
Yeah,
at the
this is
quarry.
crazy.
Right?
Really crazy. Like, I did not think these bullies were this level of psycho.
It's
It's a little over the top.
I don't
think that they
would
thought.
have been.
Yeah, I don't think they thought that he was going to jump for a second.
Mm-mm.
Like, that wasn't even an option. They thought they were going to get to fuck with Dustin.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know if they really would have done much of anything, but Mike calls their bluff.
Right?
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's the sad little moment where they try and fight back for a second.
Yeah.
Dustin immediately gets grabbed and he's got a fucking knife, which, like, I get what you're saying about it being over the top, but I feel like when you're that age and when you're already a bully like that, so you're a shitty person with like a need to inflate your ego, and you piss your pants in front of the entire school, that's not something you're living down, especially in a small town where people remember everything forever. Like, you will always be known as the guy who peed his pants in 8th grade or whatever.
So yeah, I can see them fucking with Dustin, but I still don't think that when they said, okay, then you need to jump off into the quarry, they didn't think he would do that.
I don't think they thought he would, but kids just don't seem like... I have seen kids thinking that they can do things that don't make any sense to me as a, rational adult person.
I love Dustin saying, "No, Mike, don't do it. I don't need my baby teeth."
Yes!
Oh, Dustin.
He's the sweetest.
Poor Dustin.
So yeah, when he jumps off, did you figure that she was going to save him?
Yeah, I did. That I guessed.
I figured that she would, but I didn't know how.
I didn't know how, but yeah.
So yeah, when he jumps, the camera just goes under him, and he's just floating. I was like, oh my god, that is so much better than what I kind of thought might happen.
Right.
Which is, I thought maybe she'd like slow him.
Right.
So that he doesn't hit the water quite as hard or something.
Right. But instead she just levitates him.
Yeah, and just picks him up and puts him right back up on the cliffside, which is just like, it's just the best thing. The best thing. And they're all just like, oh, what is happening? And she comes out from the side and pushes the one bully over, and the one that's got the knife, she breaks his arm.
Uh-huh. She does that head tilty thing again.
Yes.
Which apparently that actress came up with on her own. Are you the one who told me that?
No,
or did I read that somewhere? Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That wasn't a director's decision. That was a thing that she apparently came up with, and they were like, yes!
It's the most badass. I'm watching it right now. The one kid goes down, and then she looks at the other one, jerk, and head snap.
Oh! The look on her face. Oy.
Yep.
Have you seen that thing that's floating around that's like the fake presidential ticket that's her
And
and
Liana
Leanna
Mormont.
Mormont? I'm like,
Yes.
yes, can we make that a thing that happens? I know they're fictional at 12, but please,
Yeah, can
I
they
like them so
cast
much more.
can they like cast Liana in the next season of this show as anybody?
Yeah. Oh,
Because I would be fine with that actress being in more stuff. She's awesome.
great.
And she seems to right around the same age.
Yeah, she could totally be in this.
Yeah.
Make that happen. Although I'm guessing she's based in England.
Whatever. We can have a transfer
But
student.
yeah, and this girl, girl who plays 11 is British too,
Oh, is she? Okay.
but she lives in LA. Like the girl who plays Leanna Mormont, I'm sure just lives in England or in Ireland or whatever because they film over there.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be logistically more challenging.
hmm
But yeah, 11's awesome.
So yeah, she cracks their arm, and then we go to a flashback where she's remembering touching this creature's back, and the whole thing just going off. It turns around and like screams in her face, and she starts screaming, and then you see all of the vines cracking up through the walls,
Right.
and it is the coolest. I love it so much. I'm watching this like because I'm using this like watching the show while we record to make sure that we don't miss anything, and I just love this moment so much because it really is like putting yourself in the shoes of these people who don't yet know.
Right.
What the hell would you think that was?
Right.
I wouldn't think it was a portal. I would think it was a creature like
I don't
breaking
know what
into
I
the
would.
building.
I have no idea what I would think because they have so little information. I feel like the vast majority of the people working there are on such a need to know basis that some of them probably don't even really know what they're working on. So to be like, what the actual fuck is happening in front of me right now? I don't understand.
It's like Better Off 10. Are we the bad guys? I never saw that show, but I intend to. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yes.
But they work at this huge corporation that they very gradually start to realize is an evil
It's
corporation.
evil. Yeah.
And yeah, 11 like apologizes to them because she's the one that opened the portal.
She says, "It's me. I'm the monster." Oh.
And
I think that's the most we've ever heard her say at once. Don't you think? Like that's the most words sort of in a chunk that we've gotten out of her.
Don't say chunk, but
oh
yes.
God, I'm sorry. Why? That is like my word this week. You know how you just okay. I'll get it out of my system.
No, it's not a big deal, but I will call you out every single time. Because I said chunk the other day, but I was talking about vomit, and Owen was like, "You said chunk." I was like, "Yeah, because I'm just like describing something fucking disgusting." That's the only time that word is ever okay.
Okay, fine.
But yeah, I think that you're probably right. I'm like trying to think.
The only other time I can think is like when they're walking on the train tracks. I feel like she says a bunch to Mike there.
She says, "Can we go back? I'm tired."
Right. So that's the only other time we've heard like two multi-word sentences out of her
right
in a row is then and this.
So yeah, we have them
they're all hugging.
Yeah, it's really sweet. Bless their little hearts.
Like she and Mike start hugging and then Dustin just comes over on top of them.
Yes.
Hugs on them.
Dustin's the best. I love him the most. Him and Hopper, man.
Yeah.
So they head back to the house, and they pass by the energy truck that's watching them, who radios in and is like, "Hey, we have eyes on her, and she's at this address." And they head into the house, and we see them mobilizing.
Yeah, they all roll out.
Yep.
Oy.
And they are heading straight for them. So that is the end of the episode. Dun dun dun. What'd you think?
I'm excited to see what happens next. I'm excited I get to watch it tonight and talk about it pretty much immediately almost.
Yep.
as opposed to this time where I watched it like days and days and days ago, and then I was like, no. My parents are now watching it and have watched,
Yay.
I think, almost the whole thing and have listened to at least a couple of the podcasts. And so now I've got my husband who's watched them all. I'm pretty sure my parents have now watched them all. Everybody's watched them all, Natasha. All my friends, all my family. And I'm just like, I'm on episode 7.
Tee-hee.
So close.
Now you know what it's like for me.
Oh, I know. I
There
know.
are so many things that everybody has seen and not being spoiled on them, man. But like Rashawn has said, she has no sympathy because Harry
I know.
Potter is
Oh,
by
God.
far the worst in terms of accidental spoilers from people who don't mean to.
Accidental spoilers and just how long the process has gone on for you guys. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oy. I mean, how much more do you have in the 6th book?
We are about halfway through.
Yeah. Ugh.
So, and we are covering the Cursed Child after the full series is over, just because I've had
Okay.
a billion people messaging me. And I'm pretty sure that we've said that on the show that we were covering it once the main series was over. But I thought that we had, and since so many people are asking me, I guess that maybe that was off mic. I don't know. But just so everyone knows, yes, we are, we are going to do that. It's just going to be after the main series is over. And I have not read it yet, and I don't
haven't
really
either.
intend to read it like all that soon because I have a billion other things to read.
Right. I get the sense it's a pretty quick read, though.
Probably, yeah.
From the
yeah.
number of people who, like,
have
the
finished
day
it
it
already.
came out were like, hey, I read it. And I'm like, today. It was just, I actually saw it at the grocery store. I was like, oh, that came out today, didn't it?
Yep.
It's at Wegmans. It was so weird. I've never seen like something that wasn't like a pulpy romance novel being sold on an end cap at a grocery store. It was weird. It's a very literate grocery store.
Yeah, do you remember when grocery stores had like legit book sections? I remember that.
This one has a pretty okay magazine section, and then it has like a book rack.
Mm-hmm.
It has a pretty big book selection for like kids, but it doesn't have like a grown-up book section. It's so hard to find bookstores, and B, I've been talking about how every place used to sell comics, and they really don't anymore. That bugs me because I like comics, and you used to be able to like go into a random store and there'd just be a rack of comics.
Yeah, Owen in particular, like there's Hastings is the place that he had been getting his comics, and they're closing, so he's just kind of like screwed right now. There's a place like an hour away, and we're just going to be making like weekly trips down there.
Yeah.
Which is fine because there's also a great Indian place down there, so we're going there for
lunch.
lunch.
That's where the Indian place is.
Yeah.
That
Did you mention that on the thing?
No, but I remember when you guys went out to it because it was the same day that I went out to dinner and wore my fancy dress, and he was like, look, I wore my fancy outfit. And I was like, yeah, you guys went out to that Indian buffet. He's like, yeah, it wasn't fancy. I just felt like
super good
fancy.
Though. Oh, God.
I thought that was funny. I was like, no, my place wasn't fancy either. I just never have a reason to dress up, so why not?
Sadly, I dropped some of the food onto myself and stained my shirt because turmeric does not come out of clothing.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a giant yellow spot on the front of one of my favorite shirts.
Oh, that sucks.
I'm going to have to buy a new wardrobe because about 80% of my clothing now, it has stains or a hole.
I do that too. I actually I'm so clumsy. I have nerve issues with my hand, and I've gotten to the point where like I will sometimes change clothes before I eat because I'm like, I don't want to mess this shit.
If I'm at home, I wear an apron when I eat.
Oh yeah.
So this doesn't happen when I'm home, but when I go
get,
out,
like a lobster bib.
Yeah. It's like, cause I do like, I'll tuck things into my shirt, but you feel like a fucking dummy.
Yeah.
And especially when you have tits my size, like things go straight down my shirt. So it's not just about getting stained. I've been burned by food falling before.
Yeah.
Like it's just the worst. Oh. Anyway, so that is the end of the episode. So yeah, I'm glad that you get to watch the next one too, because we're recording right away tomorrow. I'm just super excited because the show is so good, and I'm going to be straight up sad once we're done, because
because it's going to be a while before we get any
Yeah,
more
I
of
mean,
it.
I think that they've said that they are considering a second season. I was hoping that it was just like straight up, no, yeah, there's a second one. I don't think it was that, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't feel like it was as solid a confirmation as I had hoped for.
Right. I think it seems to be very, very likely because they seem to, right now, Netflix seems to be picking up second seasons of like everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be weird if they would pick up a second season of like the Maria Bamford show, which
Right.
like no one watched, and not this, which a lot of people seem to be watching, or at least has a lot more buzz than the Maria Bamford show did,
So
or
much more
the
buzz.
which it was an interesting show. I didn't watch the whole thing though, and Will Arnett has a show that's supposed to be terrible, but they renewed
Oh, I
it for a
heard
second.
about
Yeah, but they
that.
renewed that for a second season, so there's no
Ew.
way. BoJack Horseman's on season 4, and that's a cartoon about a horse.
Which
Everybody
I have
says it's
never seen.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
I've watched a couple episodes, and I'm like, I gotta push further into this. I think because everybody tells me it's so amazing, and I feel like I should like it more than I do. So at some point, I'll give it another shot.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, if they don't, I mean, I'm just not going to have much to say to them. Um, I'm just going to be like, well, it was nice knowing you, Netflix, cancel.
Yeah, I think they
Um,
will.
but yeah, I think that it's just, oh, I can't say anymore. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Well, I think that that's about it, right? Anything more
Yeah.
you wanted to add?
Nope, I think that's it. I'm gonna watch the episode this afternoon and probably send you an aggravated text message because I
Hee
can't
hee.
watch the one after
Oh
that.
yeah. No, like seriously, the next one's even worse. Like, and the next one is the one that I was in the middle of watching and Owen came home for the day and I had
Oh,
to
right,
turn
you
it
had to
off
stop.
and I wasn't able to finish the season for like 2 days, 3 days, and I was just like bugging out because I just wanted to know so bad.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I what was I had a point. Oh well. Anyway, guys, if you enjoy the show, please leave a review on iTunes. Um, don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/unspoiledpod. You can follow us on Twitter at unspoiledshow. And I think that's it. Maggie, did you want to add a what's going plug?
We're going.
The end.
This
Excellent
well,
show, everybody.
this weekend you guys are doing the book club
Mm-hmm.
on Saturday, so we will not be doing a podcast on Saturday. I don't know if we'll somehow try and make it work on Sunday or not, but
Mm-hmm.
we did do one last week. Owen's got it up on YouTube, so you can search for What's Going with Owen there, or you can find us on Facebook. And he is, I believe, working on trying to get it into an actual uh, decent audio format so we can put it up on like a feed so that people can download the audio, which we've gotten a lot of requests for, which is awesome that
Mm-hmm.
people really do want to listen to it. And my friend Krista is trying to work on a logo for us, which has been fun. So
Yay. Yeah, he
it's
showed
been
me some of the
entertaining.
sketches for that, and that was fun.
Yeah, I like the little cartoons of us.
Yeah, the logos are so tough. So that's cool that you guys are going to be getting one because we had just kind of a sketchy one for a little while that before our friend did the eagle one, the old one that we
Right.
used to have, and
Mm-hmm.
the one that I had made like with Word, I think. It was not professional. But all right, cool. Well, thanks everybody for listening.